Okay, good morning everybody. Thanks very much to my friends from Qubit to asking me along here. I don't know quite what I did to deserve this, but anyway, I'm pleased to be here. So it's a little bit strange perhaps to think, well, you know, somebody who's a research professor in mathematics at the University of Oxford is coming along to talk to you. But actually, this area that you're all in, that you want to know so much about, is right in the crosshairs of some modern mathematical research. So I'm going to refer a little bit to that, but there isn't going to be a test today. But if anybody wants to know some more about the details of the mathematics, then we could do that offline. So I'm not going to give you any details of the methods and things like that. I'm going to talk about why we do it, what we learn, what we can do. Those two areas are briefly data and analytics and doing smart things, actually making inferences with large, sometimes very large data sets. And also the interest of now we can see what people are doing online. We can see very large parts of their lives. There's an opportunity for kind of computational sociology in some real sense. Okay, it doesn't have the quality of getting, 20 people in a room and questioning them for hours and hours. Instead, we've got 20 million people on websites and we can look at what they do for hours and hours. So it's sort of never mind the quality, feel the width time for sociology. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about 5 things. And usefully, so that I can remember them, they're labelled A, B, C, D, and E, which tells you something about the thought processes of a mathematician. Okay, so A is for analytics. And if you're successful online, if you've got a business that is working with a large amount of customers, is people-facing, then one element of that success is going to be you're going to collect necessarily a large amount of data. And that data is actually maybe your biggest asset, because when all is said and done, you then know who your best customers are, who your most difficult customers are, how the customers break up, and you can start to think about whether we're addressing the needs of those different customer segments. Companies that don't look at their data, companies just say, no, it's great, we're in a land grab, let's just carry on. Actually, they will get taken over. Look at the lesson from retail. So back 20 years ago, there was a sort of second largest retailer in the country was Tesco, and they started a club card scheme. And I was in very early on and looking at club card data and thought, this is fantastic. We can see what people buy, what beer they buy, who buys beer, what sort of crisps they buy with their beer, what the people who go to the pharmacy buy. They buy booze. And actually we were able to serve people better, and there were very, very clear benefits to that. Another retailer was the UK Safeway, so that's not related to the American Safeway. Actually, and they had a loyalty card and didn't really bother looking at the data very much, and as a result walked straight into the arms of Bradford-born businessman Sir Ken Morrison, enough said. So actually maybe distilling the insights from your data is maybe your key asset, because it tells you what your customers are thinking and where they're going. You should also be cautious with your data, because if you don't know what it's worth, you shouldn't be leaking it out. It's very valuable to you. So at the University of Oxford, we have a sort of research piece which is all about what we call the digital economy. And I don't need to define the digital economy for you guys, because you're all in it. But other parts of mathematics, of course, they deal with physical or biological sciences, where you've got theories and field theories, and then at the bottom you've got things like atoms controlling physics and chemistry. And atoms are great because they have conservation of mass, conservation of momentum, conservation of energy, all this stuff. Now let's look at our problem today. We're in a complex system of people buying and selling in digital spaces, platforms are converging, moods are changing, social norms are changing, all of this sort of stuff. And when we drill down to the bottom, we haven't got anything like atoms. We've got social atoms. They're people. They're difficult. They're often irrational. They don't appeal to consistent laws or anything like that. At the top end, we've kind of got macroeconomics, so it doesn't really work. Otherwise, Nigel Lawson would still be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So in the middle is where we are, where we can say something about the structure we can see amongst our customer bases and the type of journeys that our customers are on. And those journeys will be driven by their own lifestyle needs and their own perceptions, as well as the changing phase they're in with technology, whether they're adopters of technology or not. So that's A. B is for brands. So one of our areas of research is to try to define a brand space. So if you could imagine that this room is kind of brand space, and then we've got different brands, Hovis and Bovril and Gucci, and different brands located, and the brands are sort of clustered up where they have common interest groups or common purchasers and things like that. And now we can see social media tells us people are expressing opinions, a lot of it negative and a lot of it funny, a lot of it humorous, but they're expressing opinions which tell us about awareness and perceptions of brands, of brand reputation. We can start to consider where those brands are. So one element of work for digital media companies is to say, when should you overinvest in the digital channel? Why shouldn't you just advertise on the back of a bus? When should you invest heavily in digital channel? And we've done a lot of work there where we're trying to answer that question. So if you're, anybody here from brand manager for Colgate toothpaste? Good. Right, Colgate toothpaste. Don't bother going online with it. Don't bother going online with it because actually you're just broadcasting. None of us allows which toothpaste we buy to drive our social interactions. We don't talk about it in the bar. We don't talk about it at work so much. It's not interesting. There are other brands which we do talk about, that we do share, and so brands mean buzz. As an aside, maybe companies have to change the way they do, because if you look inside some of the big consumer packaged good companies, they'll have brand managers and category managers, and they'll also have account managers that manage the different accounts, both online and offline. But maybe they have to change and start to develop segment managers that consider how their products and how their brands are used specifically by certain segments. And the segments are kind of self-defining. They're clusters of behaviour. You can't look at someone's postcode and guess what segment they're in. I'm not the same as my neighbours. C is for co-creation or participation. Increasingly, people want to flaunt themselves, to do stuff, to be involved, and to gain access to a kind of platform themselves. And so actually, if we want involvement in our websites, in our brands, in our products, what we've got to do is to provide opportunities for people to co-create with us. And maybe they're going to use our products or use our services in a way that we hadn't perceived. We have no monopoly on wisdom. And remember, your reputation isn't your brand positioning. Your reputation is who people say you are. You are who people say you are. And there are going to be different groups that develop, maybe to you, odd or aberrant behaviours, but this is the nature of it. Another part of our mathematical research is to try and spot online social norms that begin to emerge, and we want to spot them early. And we can usually spot that by people participating in a certain way and doing certain things on digital platforms, which then change the game. And these can turn sectors upside down, so we'd like to see those early rather than late. That's a very exciting part of modelling and research. D is for decisions. So when we make decisions, how do people make decisions when they have some involvement, they have some requirement, they have some interest, they have some need? Actually, your brain's made up its mind before you're consciously aware that your brain's made up its mind. And it does this by thinking fast. And there's a great book by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. If any of you haven't read bits of that book, just buy it and read it. It's a life-changing book. It's called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And he explains how very often we rely on heuristics. We've evolved this. We rely on heuristics to make quick decisions without engaging our whole brain. We make decisions, and heuristics are things like do what everybody else is doing, or matching, or people like me like this, so therefore I'm like this and I ought to do this. Evidence from larger numbers of other people making similar decisions, you kind of assume that they know what you know. There's a long list of heuristics. And actually, they're interesting for researchers, and particularly for behavioural economics, because they tend to produce cognitive illusions. They're just like optical illusions, where you can trick a whole room of people into believing that they've made the right decision. And then you just point out to them that actually, if they really thought about it, actually there was a better option. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, we've evolved like this, and those heuristics actually work quite well when we're in the real world, where things move at a certain rate and you only deal with a room of, 100 people at a time and things like that. But online, you're in a room of millions of people. You've never been in such rooms like that. And so a research topic for us is thinking, if these heuristics can let you down in the real world, are they even more critical, or are they even more manipulable, is that a word? Can they be manipulated in such a way to exploit you online? And of course, this is the success of grooming in many ways. That's the dark side of it. And this is why Al-Qaeda is so successful. They have a grooming manual. So part of our research looks at whether there are cognitive illusions which are magnified by being online with the availability of information and the access to other people and comparing yourselves to other people, and whether or not we should think about that. Of course, the positive side is seduction and marketing. And actually, that provides opportunities for us to at least make people feel good and to at least support the decisions that their brains are going to make. And in the end, the brains are going to make them do it. They're going to rationalise it later. So actually preparing that groundwork. There's quite a good book called Seducing the Subconscious, which unfortunately only contains examples from offline marketing. But one day, someone like Qubit will write the online version of that. And it's a brilliant book because it just really points out time and time again that the medium is the message. It isn't the content. You can say anything you like in the content. It's the medium, it's all the whole thing that's associated with it. So if you just have a website that's functional, or if you're just giving information that's functional, that might be very good when you sit and read it in the cold light of day and think, well, we certainly told them, didn't we? But actually, when your customers come, that's not what they're looking for at all. So E is for experiential web. E is for events. Let's think about those two things. Where are we now? Where will we be in 5 years and 10 years? What will digital society look like in 10 years' time? We'll all be voting, or we'll all be polling our councils, we'll all be doing lots of things online that we don't, unless we vote in the X Factor, we don't really do now. Okay? We're going to be, there'll be two sorts of webs. There'll be a kind of functional web where you just grab it and get it. Yes, I understand what I'm doing. I'm putting in my tax return. Did that last week. How great that is. We understand how it is. It's got to be efficient, da, da, da. But then there's another type of web, which is suggesting, and retail have known this for a long time, that sometimes customers want information, sometimes they want time, that's convenience. Sometimes they want to put in energy themselves. Sometimes they want value. Sometimes they just want the experience of shopping. And it's not about gaming. It's about supplying the right thing to the right segment and not irritating the wrong segment. So why does one shop look all the same as others? Stores within stores, within stores, within stores. The last thing is events. This is an interesting one, I think, where you can think of, anybody been to the Edinburgh Fringe? Right, the Edinburgh Fringe is bigger than the Edinburgh Festival. But you see, it's the Edinburgh Festival that gives it its location and tempo. It starts at a certain date and ends at a certain date. It's in Edinburgh. That's what it is. But actually, maybe we should use more of these physical events to do really quite radical stuff online so that we could create digital fringes where, we've seen, unemployed World Cups and things like that. Go on, they take their time and their tempo from the real event, but they use the real event as an excuse for other stuff. Participative stuff, experiential stuff, stuff that gives us data about analytics, stuff that tells us about social norms. Really, we've got a lot on, haven't we? So that's what I'm going to say today, but thank you very much for your attention.